Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Writing Lab. Rebacca Solnit says, "Nothing is ever so good that it can't stand a little revision, and nothing is ever so impossible and broken down that a try at fixing it is out of the question." We started our conversation about revisions last time, and I wanted to continue it today. Um, I've spent most of this holiday weekend revising my stories, statements of purposes, application materials, all kinds of writing. And I can truly tell you that even pieces that I thought were complete and done, and I never wanted to look at again, I'm really amazed by how much I've been able to transform them through the process of revision. So, last time we talked about micro changes. Today, I want to talk about large scale macro changes that reshape the broader scope of your work. The first step to macro revisions is to give yourself distance. I mentioned this last time, and I want to go deeper into it. Anytime you finish the first draft of something, take a day, a week, a month, however much time you have, away from it. Because if you're too close to the work, it is impossible to see it clearly and to see it the way a reader would. Once you have distance, it's easier to just experience it with fresh eyes and without the burden of what you were trying to do, what you thought you were doing. You are more likely to see it for what it actually is rather than what your intentions were. And that way, you are more likely to bridge that distance between your intentions and what actually happened on the page. Once you've achieved that distance, I recommend what George Saunders does. So he reads along with a red pen, reacting in real time as he reads it, deleting, adding, etc. You don't have to do this with a red pen. You don't have to do this with a pen at all. Most of my revisions take place on the computer. But the important part is to react in real time. React, put down your emotional, intellectual, put down your what may seem even frivolous and surface level, put those reactions down and shift them, change them in that moment. For me, at this stage of revision, what I pay attention to is this. Am I bored by any sections? Am I bored by any of the themes that are emerging? Am I bored by any of the larger concerns and preoccupations of my story? If I'm bored, it's likely the reader will be too. So I know then that I need to either revise it or get rid of it. So the next thing I want to talk about is all readers are guilty of one thing or another. The first tendency is to think that all writers are guilty of either one thing or another. The first tendency is this: we think that the readers can read our mind, not just the page, so we under-explain. We don't give them all the details, nuances, background, emotional relevance, and rich experience that they require. All those absolutely key, delicious, that wealth of detail that they need in order to be able to enjoy our work and really feel our intent. That's one tendency. Another one is that maybe you don't trust your reader enough and you over-explain things. Maybe you restate them, repeat them, reveal them too soon or too often. Either way, whichever your tendency, distance helps you see what it is out of these two that you tend to do. Distance helps you remedy them. Two, the most useful strategy for catching these tendencies and making those revisions is having another reader besides yourself. Somebody you trust, somebody who ideally has the same taste as you, somebody who values the same things in writing as you do, somebody who will tell you honestly and kindly, hey, this part was a little, this part dragged a little. I had trouble staying with it. I had trouble staying engaged with it. Hey, this part I was confused. I couldn't see it. I didn't have enough context for it. I don't know what was happening. Or this part got a little bit repetitive. It's also important for this reader to tell you what works, what they did enjoy, because that's really necessary too. That's how we learn what to do more of, what to keep doing, what our strengths are. There are some strategies I use with my students for specific elements of revision that can be kind of challenging. These strategies can make the process less painful, more fun, and more manageable. The first one is this. The first one helps writers address how things are ordered, where and when, at what point of time, and in what order readers receive different parts or pieces of the story or poem. So what I have students do, and I really recommend you do this, print out the piece that needs revision on, whether it's a poem, a story, an essay, a novel, a paper, whatever. Cut up the different sections. They can be the paragraphs, the stanzas, the chapters, whatever. Cut them up, rearrange them. I've done it on the floor. Students have done it on their desks. You can put it up on the wall. So make sure you can move them around. So lay out the different, let's say they're paragraphs, lay out the different paragraphs, move them around, have them sit with different paragraphs, have them speak to different paragraphs. I am often so amazed by the new connections, the new relationships, the surprising, often really, really, really successful things that emerge from this reorganizing, things that I would have never done and thought of in that first draft. It's also really fun. It's also just this kind of tactile engagement with your own work. I think it's really, really good for us. It really reminds us that we have control, and at the same time, it helps us play. It helps us do what we used to do when we were children, and we're crafting the things we were imagining, right? It really helps us connect better with the work too. Okay, another strategy I have targets a common concern or issue. Writers not having enough of a focus. And I don't mean just in the writing process, I mean in the writing itself. So what I mean by that is not being able to sustain a thematic, emotional, or intellectual, cohesive, resonant heart. So the strategy for that is take a piece of writing. Let's say it's a short story, though of course, like the last strategy, this is good for any kind of writing. What I want you to do is I want you to make sure that there is enough space in the margins for you to scribble. So you take this short story. At the margin of every single paragraph, write down the gist, a quick summary in a few quick words. So for each paragraph, write down what that paragraph was about, what you intended, maybe either the plot or the main thematic thrust of that paragraph, whatever it is, no more than 5 or 6 words. Quickly write down the gist of that paragraph. What is that paragraph doing? What is its role in the piece? Do this in the margin, no more than 5 or 6 words for each. Do this in the margin of each paragraph. Once you have this for all your paragraphs, just put aside the actual writing. Don't look at the actual writing, just look at this list. Examine it. Look at each description, each summary in context of the other ones. See the relationships between them. Are all the paragraphs or all the paragraph summaries thematically, emotionally, plot-wise cohesive? Are there any that feel bland or stale? Are there any that would fit better elsewhere? Are there any that are doing the exact same thing as other descriptions or summaries? If so, then you either need to revise that paragraph or you need to cut it out, which will hurt. But that's what the work means, right? Third option, maybe it goes into another story, another poem, another section, another chapter. Maybe it just doesn't belong there. What this exercise does is that it helps you see the overarching effect of your work and how different parts of your work are adding or detracting from that overarching effect. It helps you see how to heighten that impact, how to make sure that your intention, your story or poem's heart is truly what's beating and alive and pulsing throughout the piece. All right. Finally, through today's prompt, we are going to do something that I really like doing and I also really hate doing. It's challenging and sometimes it falls flat, but a lot of the time it works. This is a strategy that I use for revising chapters or sections that are important, but I know they're not quite working yet. I know they belong in my piece, and I know that they're really, really important, but they're not working yet. And my line edits, my revisions haven't yet fixed them. So this helps me and will help you revise an older piece of work. Here's the prompt. Take something that you have written before, glance at it quickly. Don't read through it fully. Just glance at it quickly enough that you remember what it was about. You're not allowed to, don't pore over it. Don't pore over it. Just put it away after you've glanced at it and refreshed your memory. Now, for the next 7 minutes, you are not allowed to look at it. For the next 7 minutes, without looking at it, you are going to rewrite it, recreate it. It doesn't have to be exactly the same because it will not be exactly the same. All right? Let's set that timer. I'm setting mine. And let's begin. Thank you so much. And apologies for that loud timer. There are two different timers, and I just keep getting them mixed up. All right. So we did this because sometimes in the revision process, you can keep tinkering, keep trying to fix, keep trying to retain something and just, fussing with it. Not you necessarily, but me. I can do that. I can kind of drown in that. And sometimes it's quicker and easier to just rehaul it, to not get tied down by what you already put on the page that first time. Thank you for listening with me. Thank you for writing with me. Have a good week, and I will see you soon.